Hi everyone, how are you doing? Hope you're having a great, was this Wednesday? Or I can't remember. Hope you're having a great day anyway. Thanks for joining me for our little live chat. It's something that I guess I organised relatively kind of spur of the moment, I guess. I really wanted to kind of have a chat with everyone and just see how they're doing and all that kind of thing. And it's been a couple of weeks, so I hope that everyone's had a nice summer and everything. I wanted to chat to you today about options with online and offline lessons. I do realise that I offer these options to people, but I don't want you to think that I'm just going to be like, oh, have a lot of spam, buy my stuff, or go for my lessons. This is like totally keeping that separate. Like, what kind of stuff would I want to know if I was trying to make that choice? Online lessons are great. Offline, or what I might refer to as studio lessons, are also great, but neither one of them is perfect. They all have their pros and their cons, and it's all about finding out which method of learning is the best for you, and finding out what's the best way for you to learn. Some people like having freedom in their learning and they thrive from that. Other people, they need a little bit more structure and a little bit more, for a better description, a wee bit more of a focus or a kick up the bum. They need that motivation coming from someone to help them along with it. There's nothing wrong with that. I was absolutely like that when I was first learning to sing. I needed somebody to guide me through it, to basically hold me through it, especially when you get to when you're developing your technique. You tend to find that you'll get to a certain level and then you'll plateau for quite a bit. Then you'll have a kind of breakthrough and then plateau. And the course of learning to sing isn't, for me, it wasn't a steady improvement. It wasn't just like going up and up and up. It was almost like a really weird kind of like plateaued hill, like being landscaped or something. Bit of an improvement, plateau for ages, bit of an improvement, plateau, and it went on like that for a while. So you can imagine that can be quite demotivating, especially if you feel that you're on a plateau for a while. But it's a kind of new format we have today. It would be take roughly about 20-25 minutes of your time going through some little slides that I wanted to go through my own personal experience with online and offline lessons, the studio lessons, and offering you some ways that you can go through it for yourself. And at the end, we have a little kind of checklist, so you can take home with you things about thoughts that can help you decide which one is best for you. So I'm going to share my screen. Oh, there we go. Yay. Find my little slide thing. So now we're going to look at going specifically into online and offline lessons. That's the first thing I wanted to put in, guys, is that I was skeptical too. I am probably one of the biggest skeptics out there. But I wanted to kind of tell you my personal story. I went to an opera course called Co-Opera down in London. It was a residential course down over the Easter break, and found it incredibly useful. It was a brilliant course. It really improved my singing a lot. And the lady that organised Co-Opera is a lady called Kate. Bless her, she's a lovely lady. She recommended that I do some lessons with one of her close personal friends, Alex, who was a professional singing teacher and a professional opera singer. He had experience with like Sydney Opera and stuff. The guy's amazing, but he's now retired and living in Israel. So I started lessons with him, and it was like through Skype lessons. And this is the funny thing about it, is that Skype lessons with a stranger. Well, I guess it wasn't a complete stranger. It wasn't like, hey, hello, random person on the street. It was a recommendation of somebody that was already a really, really good singer, recommending another really, really good singing teacher. But the fascinating thing about this, the experience, was that I'd never met Alex, never been in the same room with him, possibly been in the same country at the same time, but we've never met. Even though he was teaching me, we never actually met in person. But I have to be given me his due. He absolutely transformed my singing. And that's why, you know, some people can be quite skeptical about online lessons or Skype lessons and things, but actually from my own personal experience, they can be absolutely transformative. Um, you know, it's give you a kind of example, folks, that it's a bit like the song Happy Birthday. It's sung so many times, you know, across the world every day. But a good singer can make it sound amazing, and a really bad singer can make it sound awful. And I think it's the same kind of thing with like Skype lessons, and that they are constrained to a certain extent, but a really good teacher will do the best for you for during that time, whereas a rubbish teacher will just make it seem like it's total waste of time. It's really down to the teacher and how they can plan or work around the constraints that they have. And there's constraints and limitations both online and offline lessons. So it's all about their creativity, their ability to plan ahead. So what the Alex's lessons did for me is that I was actually holding my jaw slightly too tightly when I was singing, and the fascinating thing was that Alex was the only teacher that actually picked up on that. He was the only person before or since then that noticed this problem. And as soon as we started going into a little bit more about developing my technique with mouth position and making sure that I wasn't going too wide, and that's where the tension was coming from, all of a sudden my voice improved very rapidly. Within the space of 2 months, I had suddenly had vibrato in my voice, which I had never had before. I'd always been what we call a straight toned singer. That I only had like was it the preceded 25 years or so. It's just always been that. But all of a sudden, with this little update to my technique, vibrato was there. So that was like amazing for me. It made my voice so much like richer, and I could be more expressive. It was just amazing, you know. So that's the kind of thing about online lessons. That's how I started with Skype lessons. But we could have two main ways of teaching online. You do have the ones that are like Skype, whereas the teacher is there live, and as are you. But like both people could be anywhere in the world. All you really need is a good internet connection, at the very, very basic. That's all you need to kind of get started. But on the other hand, you also have options like recorded lessons, like an online course, where all the course material and the curriculum and the structure is all planned for you. It's already been set up. It's been structured for particular goals. And all you need to do really is have a good internet connection again, and sign up for the course, pay for the course, and then it's all ready there for you, and you can take it more like in your own time. So this is the thing with the Skype lessons, everyone. I already went through my kind of first experience and how like transformative it was for me. I would say that there's kind of two parts of this in terms of preparation. There's to bear in mind, if you're the potential customer, there's preparation that teacher has to do, but there's also preparation that you have to do as well. From my own personal experience, from teaching at home, like on one-to-one, like in-person lessons, a lot of the time, my pupils didn't prepare. They haven't done their studying. They are all very conscientious and brilliant pupils, but hey, life gets in the way sometimes. You can't help that. And on the other hand as well, for Skype lessons, I think there is more of a preparation involved. If there's teachers listening, I would say absolutely don't be tempted to try and when you're on one side of the Skype call, that you play the piano accompaniment and you're trying to get your singer to sing along. Because even if you have like really brilliant internet connection, there's always going to be a lag, and it's something to bear in mind. So Teachers out there, don't even be tempted to try it, because I've tried it. I have really good internet at home and it was completely pointless. There was a delay of 1-2 seconds or something. It just didn't work and it's really frustrating. So for the teachers, that means that you have to prepare the materials and have them sent to your pupil in advance, whether that's a backing track or if it's a live recording of a piano accompaniment. I use Google Drive for hosting files. That's really helpful because there's lots of space on there and it's very easy for your pupils to access the files. It's all like, you only log in with a private link, so it's only particular people that can access the files. It's people that you've given access to. Most people are registered for Google anyway, so it's not that they have to do an extra thing or it's an extra faff or anything like that. But the same token for pupils, if you're a pupil that's normally used to going to a studio lessons, just rocking up with nothing prepared, so you walk through the door and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have my lyric sheet, or I don't have my backing track, or I don't have my sheet music. That's going to be pretty much useless if you're doing a Skype lesson. At the very least, you would have to have that backing track or the file that your teacher has given you. You need to have it on the computer that you're using or loaded onto your phone ready to go. Might seem an obvious thing, but make sure that you don't overlook like battery life for these things. You don't want anything, like dying and having a low battery while you're trying to get ready for your lesson. So there is a bit like a forward planning involved with Skype lessons to make them good. There's just absolutely no point in trying to accompany somebody or sing and trying to match it, because the lag is just completely like frustrating. All you really need for good Skype lessons, you absolutely need good Wi-Fi. There is a couple of things that should be like important as well, like the normal things that you would have in a singing lesson, such as a notepad, a pen, or some water. So the last thing to remember for Skype lessons is that you can't have any background noise. Much like with studio lessons, you have to have a space where you can perform, and that has to be like not have people chatting or anything like that. There can be no distractions, so you're not like half watching your Facebook feed at the same time as what you're trying to practice. You still need to have that space, whether that's at your home or if it's like actually hiring a practice room or something. You need to have that that's another aspect of the preparation of it. You need to think about where are you going to practice as you're doing your lesson. So with pre-recorded lessons, they're a little bit different. My first experience of it was actually a paid course, and it wasn't a music course. It was actually a business course by a group called Founder. That was a very positive experience, actually, because their course was really well planned out. It was quite a long, like elaborate course, but they did it in a way so that it was all little tiny steps. Each video was like no more than say 2 or 3 minutes, but that's maximum like length of video would be no more than like 8 minutes, and that's by design so that people can stay motivated as they're learning. If you have a really epically long lesson video for an online course, if you go over like the 10-minute mark, then it's probably worth redoing that into smaller videos. In fact, I'm in the middle of changing my course on Know Your Voice, because it made me realize that actually some of these videos are too long. They should be chopped down into a couple of smaller ones to make it easier to digest. And that's the important point with this one, folks, is that the pace of learning is really, really important, but that will differ between different tutors. So pace of learning, as in, how much do you learn at any one time? And it isn't just about what we're going to learn this week. It's also about making sure that each part of your course has logistical steps. You want to make sure that there aren't any assumptions that your tutor is doing that aren't fair for them to assume. That's why a lot of courses, actually, people say that they prefer somebody that's not a complete expert in their field, actually someone that's just a little bit further along the journey than you. And I can understand that because they can remember succinctly what it was like to be you. It wasn't that far in the past, whereas you can imagine if you're an expert that's been doing something for 30 years or something, sometimes people lose their empathy for beginners when they're first starting because it's been that long since they had been a beginner. They just simply can't remember, or the circumstances have changed. So I would absolutely recommend to try before you buy. If you're going to think about a pre-recorded course, it doesn't necessarily have to be the particular course itself that you're eyeing up, though some of them do offer a little free trial. I would recommend get some learning materials from that person or that business. And that's what I did with Founder. I found out about them and I was like, oh, they seem quite interesting. So it's more about looking at how to develop my Instagram feed and knowing more about Instagram. I'm not the oldest person in the world, but I'm not particularly young either. So Instagram was a bit of a new thing for me. And I was like, I need to learn more about this. The great thing about Founder is that they do give some free things. They do have a free trial magazine and a free guide to the starting off your Instagram. And just doing some of these little free guides of free introductions and trial lessons, it gives you an idea of what the pace of learning is like, what the communication style is like for that tutor. How do they explain things? Do they explain things in an understandable and methodical way that you just get, sometimes it could be just the way that people word things and their personality. That always look for a tutor that, even if they're maybe going off on a wee bit of a tangent or something, you instantly understand what it is they're trying to do. You should never feel like you're really struggling to understand. Frankly, that would be a fault of the teacher rather than the pupil. The teacher is either not making themselves clear enough, or that their teaching style doesn't particularly suit you. So this is the thing about these kind of lessons, that there are limitations. If you're a kinesthetic learner, that is somebody that learns by doing and by movement, then Skype lessons and pre-recorded kind of course lessons are going to be kind of limiting for you in a way. Compare that to, say, studio lessons. If you can get your teacher, there's two ways of doing it. You either go to this teacher studio, or if they go to you, or you meet in a rehearsal room or something like that. It's all about context. Contextual, I can't even say that. Contextual learning is an important part of studio lessons, and that the studio lessons can be anywhere that you and your teacher agree to meet. That can be vitally important if you're someone that wants to study musical theatre, for instance. One of your lessons might be you've asked your tutor to come along to the theatre in which you're going to be performing, so that they can see you going through, say, the dress rehearsal, or doing some of the practicing, blocking or something like that. And as you're doing the rehearsal, they'll give you kind of notes. They're there as an observer, that they can give you notes on what your stage performance is like, your stage craft. This is all important things of musical theatre. You're expected to sing and to move, though that with opera and things like that, or they call it the old park and bark profession. It was normally the case that it wouldn't be an awful lot of movement, though I think in the last maybe 10 years or so that has changed quite a bit. So that's one of the things that you can't really offer with online lessons, is a location kind of context. Another way to think about it is also looking at the acoustics of a room, so that for example, for dynamics and volume and stuff, that's all relative. You could say fortissimo in a score, or maybe even the same, for instance, mezzo forte in a score, but you're competing with a full orchestra. So actually, in realistic terms, it means that the singer has to sing full fortissimo in order to be heard over the orchestra. And it could be a room that has a really dry acoustic. So the singer doesn't really feel supported at all with the acoustics of the room. So they feel like they have to work pretty hard. But by the same time, if you feel like you have to work very hard in a particular venue, you have to be careful that you don't overdo it, stuff like that. So that's the thing that studio lessons really can offer what online lessons can't. For visual learners as well, that you can kind of see examples in, let's say, pre-recorded lessons and things like that, but it can be limited in that sometimes it's easier for people to learn if you're a visual learner, if you've got the person in front of you, because you pick up on their movement easier. You'll be able to stand closer to them so you can observe subtleties. So that's the kind of limitations that you have. So let's look into offline lessons or studio lessons and in-person lessons, whatever you want to call them. For the advantages with that is that it's much easier to tailor lessons to a pupil from a teacher standpoint. It's easier for the teacher to be able to adapt. Say, for instance, earlier on today, I had a pupil, they came for a lesson, but they were actually feeling kind of a bit ill. So I did have a kind of lesson plan there, but I had to adapt to it. Whereas you can imagine if it's a pre-recorded course, you can't really tailor lessons much at all. You might mention in a small section of a course, there might be a little video as this is how you can cope with doing some exercises when you're ill. You might give some advanced advice on how to do that, so that pupils can dip in and out of a particular section of a course as and when that becomes relevant for them. But that's definitely the advantage of on in-person lessons, is that you see the person, you see how they're reacting to the materials that you're giving them, from a teacher standpoint, and you adapt. Your teacher might have plans for you, they have a lesson plan created in advance before you walk through the door. But if they say that you're really low on energy that day, there's very little point in you going through the same lesson plan, because a lot of it will be too exhausting for you. The other thing to bear in mind, and you might be one of these people, is that a lot of people go to music lessons for enjoyment. So they might prefer kind of going into a studio because it's kind of an escape for them. It's somewhere new, and meeting someone new as well. Though, to be fair, with online lessons, you can join private Facebook groups and you can join communities for particular courses, and that can actually be incredibly supportive. You can make friends online. But if people doing it for a hobby, then it's kind of being surrounded in that environment is a bit more all-encompassing when you're doing studio in-person lessons. I did a research a couple of years ago, and it was about how people felt about coming to a one-to-one lesson and what were the reasons behind people not wanting to come. I found it incredibly interesting that 80% of people didn't feel confident in their own ability or potential to improve as a musician or a singer. And that was one of the main reasons why they'd never considered going to an in-person lesson. And that's one of the kind of limitations, I think, of offline or studio lessons, is that actually they can be quite intimidating. Going to a lesson is scary. It's scary for a beginner. You don't really know the things that people like about doing it for a hobby, like, say, a new environment, a new place to go, meeting new friends and stuff. That can also, by the same token, be incredibly intimidating, especially if you have a dream that you would want to be a singer or a professional singer one day, and you've put a lot of pressure on yourself to be the singer that you want to be, and it's not quite happening yet. And I've been there where it's you kind of be a bit overwhelmed to the point where you might think, if anyone said anything critical to you, it would be absolutely heartbreaking. So it's easier in a way to not try, because if you did try and then someone was really critical of you, it would be just too upsetting. And I think, like, to some extent, this is why the 80% comes from people not feeling confident in their ability or potential. I think some of it is fear of being criticized, and that when you first start, people really take things to heart. I certainly, when I started learning to sing, I definitely had to develop a kind of thick skin, and that, don't crumble and just cry floods of tears if somebody says something negative. I had to learn how to take criticism. That's something that I had to learn to do. It didn't come naturally to me at all. But I can totally understand it if you're feeling like that, and it's one of the things that's holding you back. Could be that online lessons might be a way for you to start, because they're not quite as scary. That kind of leads on to my next point, that you need to think about, how do you learn at your best? And it's all about horses for courses, everyone. What one way that would be better for you, and other ones wouldn't be so great. So it's all about asking yourself some particular questions. Do you think that you would feel you get most done if you committed to having a regular time every week? There's lots of people that absolutely love this, that once it's in their calendar every week, say, Tuesday, 6 p.m., you go to your lesson and that's it. It's a really good way for some people to feel focused. If you live in a city where you have a lot of teachers nearby, I think that's a great option. But on the other hand, if you live somewhere quite rural, it takes a lot of time and cost for you to go to a teacher. It might be actually quite demotivating, because, say, for instance, one day, for whatever reason, you don't have such a productive lesson, and you think to yourself, oh, I've spent money on that lesson. I've also spent an extra, I don't know, 20 something pounds getting to the lesson, whether that's travel or time or whatever, and you can get quite demotivated by that. It's something to consider, the travel cost and the time cost of just getting to and from a lesson. If it costs a lot and it's going to take a lot of your time, online lessons might be better for you. Some people find that it's great to have that fixed regular appointment. It's something they can commit to. It helps them to focus. Depends what your relationship is like with deadlines. I used to absolutely hate deadlines. In my career at university, I've done all right from uni. I've got past degree and I've got a 2-1. I'm halfway through a master's as well. But the deadlines have always had a kind of a strained relationship with deadlines, though I'm better with them now. I used to be that pupil that wouldn't study properly and always end up doing all-nighters and staying up till 4 or 5 in the morning to get my coursework submitted. Even did that when I was doing my master's. I'm really bad. Though, to be fair, with deadlines, they do help you get focused. Once you have that timer, like, right, you have to show up, you have to submit this stuff at this time, it can help get you that kick up the bum that you need. But some people learn better if what they're doing is more flexible. So an online kind of pre-recorded course, an online course might be good for you. If you prefer not to have any deadlines, if they really stress you out too much and you feel you get really anxious about them, if you'd rather just take your time and kind of learn at the times that you want to, fitting it around different parts of your life, whether that's, you have other commitments, you maybe be like looking after children or something, so you might only have a couple of hours every now and again, so it'd be difficult to commit to deadlines if you have an essay or something to hand in. Some people prefer having the flexibility, but it's all about what level of self-discipline do you have. You have to be quite self-aware and be quite honest with yourself about whether or not you need somebody to tell you what to do, which pretty much, in the nicest way possible, that's what teachers do. They tell you what to do, they tell you how to do it, and they tell you when to do it. But teachers get results, and having the structure and the I guess the progression and the step-by-step kind of structure, it helps people get results without feeling overwhelmed. Whereas if you're not very disciplined or you haven't done much of the working things on your own, you might find that that's a bit of a struggle for you. I'm okay learning on my own at my own pace, but that's because I've been self-employed as a teacher for 7 years. So I'm becoming quite accustomed to being my own person that gives me a kick up the bum. I'm used to that and to being kind of self-disciplined for myself. Another kind of thing I would say as well is for introverts, that actually online lessons might be a good option for you for some of the reasons that we outlined before about, say, travel and using up your time and stuff like that. But the thing is with introverts, I'm an introverted person myself. It'd be good for you to have that choice of using a course on your own pace so that you don't have somebody, it might make you a bit anxious if somebody is kind of giving you a bit of a kick up the bum and trying to motivate you. It might just finally be a bit too irritating or too anxiety and inducing for you. But also the option of having it at your place. There's no need for you to change anything about your environment, apart from making sure there is no background noise and no distractions. But you can learn at your home. You can learn whatever quiet space that you have in your home so that your environment won't change that much when you're doing the learning. And you also want experience changes in the things that irritate me. Like, I don't go to big supermarkets unless I can avoid it, because frankly, I just don't like the big crowds of people, that it stresses me out just a bit too much. So it could be that not necessarily when you're going to your lesson, because that would be a one-to-one lesson, but on your way there, you might be passing crowds of people. There might be heaps of traffic and noise. So it's something to consider about what your experience will be, not just in a lesson, but going to and from a lesson. So I would recommend your next steps, folks, is to have a little kind of consideration about these questions that I've asked you today. I would say, like, have a look at the checklist that I've put in below. So if you have a teacher that you think you'd like to work with, see if you can meet with that teacher. And I've put in capitals, do not pay. Make sure that you can try before you buy. And even if it's just a case of just meeting up for a chat and a quick coffee, it doesn't need to be an actual formal lesson. Though I would say that good kind of teachers will offer you some kind of trial. I offer a 1 hour introductory lesson. There was a few years ago there, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, that I offered it for free. But unfortunately, that led to a lot of abuse of that system. A lot of people not turning up at all and not communicating after they'd booked the lesson. So that's why I had to change it to a small fee. It's like £10 for your first lesson. But that's just because of kind of practical problems more than anything. But what I do offer is free online introductory courses, and I offer free Skype chats and things like that as well. So find a way, like, if you have a teacher in mind that you would like to work with, find a way to work with them, either if that's online or in a studio lesson. But make sure you don't part with any cash when you're first doing that first kind of thing, because you're wanting to use that course or that chat to just get a feel for the person, get a feel for their personality. Does their personality work well with yours? Does their way of explaining things and their teaching style work with you? I say to people, like, sometimes when they're first coming to a lesson, it's a bit like going on a date. It could be that there's not going to be a spark there, there's not going to be a good working relationship. It's not really anyone's fault. It's just like a clash of personalities, or just their communication and teaching style doesn't work for you, and that's absolutely fine. There will be a teacher out there that will just make things easy and fun and almost effortless. You just sometimes is it like a bit like going on a date. Sometimes you have to try a couple of teachers before you find the right ones for you. And the other thing is to ask heaps of questions. If there's any chance that an opportunity for you to ask some questions for your potential teacher, and make sure that you ask them if it's like ones for how do you get past this problem, or how do I go from this course and what's my next kind of progression, and has anyone ever experienced this problem, and how can I deal with it? Is there a way that I can do this in a cheap and cheerful way? Don't be afraid to ask any of these kind of questions, because they may be, if it's a relatively simple question or one that is very common, most teachers would tell you the answer, or they might signpost you to something that has the answer inside that, whether like a particular course or particular lessons, or ebook, or whatever it is that they're doing. But they'll always offer some kind of option, whether that's free or paid or anything. They won't leave you in the lurch. If they don't know the answer, they'll show you to someone that does know the answer so they can help you. Thanks for looking for my presentation there. It was great to kind of chat with you and everything. I will kind of leave that for today. Please let me know if you have any further questions about online and offline lessons. There might be some things that you're not too sure of in terms of, you might be sitting there thinking, oh, I'm not too sure what kind of person I am. Do I have this discipline? Do I have the honesty and the self-awareness in order to do lessons on my own? You might be struggling a little bit. So if you want to have a chat with me, and sometimes even you can tell by people's occupations if they have a discipline. Did that make sense? If you're like a manager, if you're a self-employed, if you're a teacher already but in a different skill, you absolutely have the discipline. It's just applying it to transferable skills into a different area. So thanks very much, folks. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. So it's jane@musicisrforte.co.uk. Have a great evening, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.